The trouble with double branding. Why two is not always better than one. This is the era of brands. Everybody loves brands. I love brands, and big companies especially like brands. Lots of brands. More often than not, what you're likely to hear in the boardroom these days is, hey, if one is good, then two is even better. So you have brands upon brands upon brands. Taster's Choice was already the #1 brand of freeze-dried coffee when Nescafé decided, hey, let's just add our mega brand to the package and call it Nescafé Taster's Choice. Is that better? Not necessarily. More brand names is more confusion, and double branding is not really helpful to consumers. But it's done time and time again. P&G bought Glide dental floss for $50 million and quickly added their Crest brand name to the package, and now it's called Crest Glide. But consumers don't think of it like that. I mean, do you write Crest Glide on your shopping list? I don't, and most of my friends and no one I know does. We also have Crest White Strips. Of course, when you pick a generic name like White Strips, you kind of have to add the Crest name, and leads to the double branding debacle. Kleenex Cottonelle toilet paper, Vaseline Intensive Care, Sony Ericsson cell phones, Sharp Aquos televisions. In the advertising here, Sharp is really the dominant brand. But then look at the package. It's Aquos that dominates the package. What is the consumer left to think? What name do consumers end up using when thinking of this television? Well, there's the Sharp name and the Aquos name. My guess is that people say, I bought a Sharp TV. That's what I just bought, and that's what I call it. The Sony Bravia television is the same situation. We have the Sony brand and the Bravia brand. So when given two names, what brand do consumers choose? Well, on that brand mind teeter-totter, still it's the Sony name that most people use. Or here's a total disaster, Budweiser Select. Budweiser Select is in serious trouble. The product launch has fallen flat and sales have tanked. Is double branding to blame? It's certainly partly to blame, because think about when you go into a bar, say, hey, give me a Budweiser. It's easy. The bartender says, hey, the king of beer is coming right up, sir. When you say to the bartender, give me a Select, I mean, the bartender's going to look at you like you're nuts. A what? Give me a Budweiser is easy. Give me a Select? What is that? And that's one reason the brand's in trouble. We have Campbell's Select. Campbell's tried to go upscale with the soup brand and gave it the brand name Select. Hey, get me some Select soup. What kind of soup would you like me to select, dear? Is the likely answer. Total confusion. Arby's Market Fresh, another double branding brand. Condé Nast Portfolio Magazine. When you give the consumer too many brand names, there's confusion, and they're only likely to pick one. But it's what companies love. It's called the mega brand system. They have the overall mega brand like Condé Nast or Arby's, or in this case, Chevrolet. And then you have the sub-brands like Aveo, Cobalt, Corvette, HHR, Impala, Malibu, or Monte Carlo. In the boardroom, this sounds great. We get the benefit of the mega brand, and then we get to have our cake and eat it too with our sub-brands. But listen, this just doesn't work in the mind. Consumers don't think of mega brands and sub-brands. They just think of brands that own something. One word is the best way. Consumers will only use one anyway. When you say, hey, I just bought a Chevrolet, or hey, I just bought a Cobalt, more often than not you hear, I just bought a Chevrolet. That's the real brand consumers think about. Or think of it another way. If they went out and bought a sports car, would they say, I just bought a Chevrolet? Certainly not if it was a Corvette. Corvette is a much, much stronger brand in the mind of the consumer. So it's not always the first name that gets into the mind of the consumer. It's the strongest brand, the more powerful brand. And if you have that, just use that. I mean, Corvette should be its own separate brand, its own separate dealership, its own separate advertising. That's the way consumers feel. The company is just confusing people by putting it within the mega brand system. Texaco, many years ago, tried to brand their gasoline by calling it Sky Chief, and they had enormous signs promoting this, but it never caught on with consumers because it wasn't a word and terminology consumers used. They used Texaco. And finally, all the stations today are Texaco because that's the brand that means something. Some other double brands that are likely to disappear too, brands like Cobalt, Market Fresh, Select, Bravia, and Aquas, because double branding can lead to confusion, and one brand is likely only to be the winner in the end. I'm Laura Ries, and this is the Ries Report.